With the world of coaching evolving and the carousel always changing, we're going to sit down with some coaches and we're going to figure out what they coach, how they coach, and most importantly, why they got into this profession. My name is Kason Wilkinson, and I am your host of the Coaches Why podcast.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk today, man. I know you said that you're doing off-season stuff right now. So what does that what does that normally look like for you guys being hockey?
Yeah. Pretty much every weekend I'll be on the road doing some sort of camp or clinic, from now until August, one including our own camp here at Robert Morris, where we'll have a bunch of different prospects come and get a chance to showcase themselves, and then also us to showcase what we have for them. Recruiting is always a 24/7 thing at this level, so always looking at a large amount of players of different birth years, and then just getting stuff in order for next year, mostly keeping tabs on our incoming players for next year, making sure they're are applied and have all their housing done and getting all their ducks in a row.
All the fun part of that side of it, right? Make sure that they can actually show up on campus without any issues. So that's cool though. So you guys are doing a lot of the a lot of the camps and a lot of just trying to not only get your name out there, but also continue to look for the future. So like hockey, it's interesting, and I don't mean this in any sort of way, obviously, but like hockey is interesting because like you don't have it everywhere in the country, right? In terms of collegiate, right? And like, it's also one of those things. Sorry, I just got ahead of myself there. But like, in football or basketball, you have like Division I, D2, kind of across the board. That's pretty straightforward. But you have like D3s competing with D1s at this, just because you don't have the depth of other sports, right? At least in that terms. I could be naive to that, but I believe I think that's one of the reasons why that is there. But like, what is that space like, knowing that you have kind of these different variables? So like, whenever you are getting and talking to these athletes, or just putting on camps, right? Like, does that differentiation or differentiation, there we go, ever come into play for you guys in terms of that?
Yeah, I always let players know when I go recruit that the size of the space is a lot smaller than some of those other sports that you've mentioned. I mean, we only have 63 teams, Division I, 64 next year, I believe, with Maryville.
Gotcha.
Actually, Mercier's just dropped, so again, still going to be stuck at 63. So I just kind of talk about there's not a whole lot of room, there's not a whole lot of space, and you play at any sort of level of NCAA ice hockey, whether it be Division I, Division III, or even ACHA. It's good hockey everywhere, top to bottom.
Absolutely. Yeah. When it comes to, I guess we can get started with you. I know I was going to talk a little bit about some more of the hockey stuff, but I think if I do that right now, it's going to take away from some of the questions here in a little bit. So I think we're just going to jump straight into a little bit with you guys. If you guys haven't had a chance to see who this is yet, we have Coach Vinnie Pietrangelo. He's from Robert Morris University. He's the assistant hockey coach up there, unless something changes. But as far as I know, assistant hockey coach, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. So he's joining the show today. So for one, very first ever hockey coach. So super pumped about that. Super excited to talk a little bit about the sport of hockey. Big Four, but one of the smallest fields or rinks, right? I guess you consider it, field, I guess, but it's not a field. We all know what you're talking about. One of the smallest, right? But it is part of the Big Four. So super excited to talk a little bit about that in that regard. And obviously a little bit about yourself, Coach, and to talk a little bit about what hockey is in today's world and what it is at your space. So with that being said, Coach, I'd love to get to know you. So tell me a little bit where you're from and when did you get involved with sports, but maybe hockey, since that's obviously what you're coaching.
Sure. I'm originally from Traverse City, Michigan, which is northern Michigan. Growing up, tried to play like every sport in some sort of capacity. Did t-ball, did soccer, did golf, tried basketball. So kind of tried to all, love sports. When I got into like high school age, I did 3 sports. It was lacrosse, tennis, and ice hockey. I got into hockey, and I've said this before, but my best friend growing up in elementary school when we were like 6 or 7 years old, he had an outdoor rink. His dad made him an outdoor rink, and it was more or less, if I wanted to like have fun with my friends, I needed to learn how to skate and play hockey. And so that's, what I did. My mom signed me up for what would be called like learn to play, learn to skate. And I did that and fell in love with it, fell in love with the game at a very young age, and, haven't stopped since. And, got into coaching while I was still playing.
Okay.
When I was at the collegiate level.
So you were at the collegiate level is when that kind of transition happened, when that thought process happened?
Yeah. I kind of, once I was in high school, I always knew I wanted to coach when I was done playing, and I knew I had to play as long as I can and wanted to play as long as I can. I did get hurt in college, and when that happened, it was my first time where I kind of spent a little bit of time away from the game. And I've had some mentors in my life that told me, hey, while you're rehabbing injury, you should get into coaching, and that's what I did. So I started coaching just the local high school team on where I was playing college at, and fell in love with that part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, to kind of pivot off what you just mentioned as well, right? Like you said that you were hurt, you got injured at your college space whenever you were there, and you had some mentors kind of help with your next step, whether it's rehabilitation, but also just kind of your mental space, right? So I guess for you, I mean, I don't know how many people you're allowed to have on a team in hockey. Like, I don't know your roster cap, right? Things like that, which feel free to enlighten me or us whenever we get to that, right? But, I don't know what that is, but I'm sure it's a pretty, like you said, it's a small space, right? Hockey's a very, very small space in terms of, probably what I mean by that is very competitive, right? If you're going to be that guy on the ice, or maybe even just to get to the school, it's probably pretty competitive, right? In a lot of regards. So when somebody gets injured, right, it can be very demoralizing, I'm sure, knowing that it was probably not an easy task to get to that spot, right? So knowing that, how do you now coach kids or athletes through that tough time, right, and help them pivot, whether it's to rehab to come back to the ice, or maybe it's rehab to kind of take that next step in life, right? So like how do you approach and help athletes through tough times, whether it's injuries or just maybe just a tough time in life?
Yeah. I mean, as a coach, you do more than just coach the X's and O's with them. You build relationships with them. And, I feel it's always good to know someone has been in your spot before and, has persevered through it, I think is the biggest thing. To know that it's just been done before. For me, like when I got hurt, I'd never been hurt in my life. I've never missed any time playing. So it was a whole new world for me. And, I had a lot of, like I said, good mentors and good people in my corner that kind of helped me through that. And I just try to provide the same experience to our players here, with that and help them mentally get back and ready to get prepared for on the ice. I try to keep it light. If there's someone rehab an injury and I see him at the rink, I try to keep things light with them. Ask them how everything's going in their life.
So it's a lot of just mental stuff, it sounds like. I mean, obviously I know you're not the trainer, right? So I know you're not the one who's physically doing the stuff with them, but it's a lot of just mentally trying to keep them going. It's a lot of just keeping them just positive as possible to maintain, what they're trying to get to, right? At least that's what it sounds like to me. So with all that happening, right, like we have a lot of kids who probably have aspirations to go play at the highest level, right? They all want to go play. Actually, before I get to that question, because I actually don't know this question, so I think you'll be able to help me out here. Baseball has like minor leagues, right? They have AAA, AA, right? Whatever. Soccer has a whole bunch of different levels and opportunities there. Even football has a little bit now trying to get up to it. Long story short, does hockey have that opportunity for athletes? Do they have like anything other than NHL for people to go do?
Yeah, tons of avenues post college to play. I mean, obviously, yes, you have your NHL at the top. You have your AHL, your East Coast League, your SP. SPHL and your federal hockey league here in all in the United States. A lot of players go over to Europe to play, which I think is awesome. It's something that I would have done if I kept playing at a pro level. I'd want to go play over in Europe. And just
That's cool.
They have a really good experience. They pay players really well. They take care of them, and it's something different. It's a different lifestyle and different thing that some players can do. But there's tons of options post college. I mean, we had 2 seniors this year at Robert Morris, and both of them moved on to play professional hockey at the East Coast League level.
Sick. Okay, that's cool. So there is options. I just didn't know. I mean, it's probably because I'm just naive to it, to be honest with you. I didn't grow up. I grew up just not really watching hockey that much. A lot of my friends did. They always talked about, where I'm from, the closest team to us was like the Coyotes at that time, or Arizona, and then Avalanche. I'm from New Mexico, so that's kind of the two, or Dallas was kind of the other main one. So they grew up on local TV, of course, but that's all you ever see, right? Like you see NHL, you see that level on TV all the time. So I just didn't know if there was other options. So there is options for that. So which we'll get into here in a little bit in terms of maybe some athletes who are trying to get to that level, right? Like what's the goal? How do they get there? Things like that, right? Might be some questions in that, but kind of with the idea that hockey is so big in its own right, in its own space. What do you think what do you think makes hockey so polarizing to the people? Is it just the grit of hockey? Is it just the combination of kind of soccer and football? Like is it and ice, skating on ice? Like what do you think makes hockey so exciting for not only for like Americans but for the world? Because we all know that when Canada and America play hockey this year, right? We saw that this year. Was it this year or last year? I can't remember. But there's that hatred. There's that, nah, you ain't gonna boo America's flag, right? And whatever. So like, anyways, what do you think makes it so intense and so like polarizing?
Yeah, I mean it's all of that. I mean, being able to skate is a really hard skill, and to see guys do it as fast as what they do at that level, I think really intrigues a lot of people. And then the physicality of it as well is something that people love to see. It's a very fast, skilled, hard, heavy game to play. You got to be tactical like all those other sports, but you have to do it at a higher level because things happen a lot quicker. So there's a lot of other little intricate skills in the game that you have to learn other than just X's and O's. And then you got to watch out for someone, trying to hit you, yeah. Trying to fight you too, because fighting is allowed in hockey too. And that's a lot of people like to come and watch that too. Obviously it doesn't happen at the collegiate level, but it happens at those higher levels. So there's just a lot of things and a lot of different aspects of our sport that they might not get, in other sports. In other sports, there's a lot of I look at it where there's a lot of,
I know what you're trying to say.
That time in between plays and in between things. Basketball, you can slow it down, and in like half court. And football, obviously they've got to start over every single play. Hockey's on the go. It's on the fly. There's constant action throughout the whole game. You can go long stretches of, 10, 15 minutes and maybe not getting a whistle, of just free flowing play back and forth, scoring chance. So there's just always something, and it keeps you very engaged.
For sure. Yeah, I see like you guys play what, 3 20-minute quarters? Is that right? Or 3 20-minute periods, excuse me?
Periods, yep.
Yeah, 3 20-minute periods. So like in that time frame, because I know in terms of soccer, like you're only allowed to sub 3 people at the highest level. You're only allowed to sub 3 substitutions a game. But you see hockey kind of slide in. Like you might see this guy hop off the ice while this guy's hopping on, right? Type of thing. So what is the reason for that? Is it because of like a tactical change? Is it because that person needs a break? Like what's normally the reason for that type of in and out, essentially?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, the first and foremost is like just you want your players to be around like 45-second shift, and the amount of energy they've got to expend on that, since they're constantly moving, you get tired, and you just need to sub in and out, because you're never really stationary. You're always moving. There's really no break. So you expend all your energy, and then you need someone to replace them. On a tactical side, sometimes there's coaches that like to line match. So a specific line plays against another team's specific line. You see them putting that line out. You want to get your line out to match them. Sometimes it's a matchup based on something defensively you want, or sometimes it's offensively. I want, this line to be out against them to go and score, because we think it's a better matchup. So sometimes it's a little bit of that too. I've had coaches that are really big on the line matching. It's always this line plays that line, this line plays that line. I've had other coaches that are, we just kind of roll through and let the game of the flows of the game kind of dictate who we're putting out there.
Sure.
Yeah, it's more
a mixture.
It's more of a efficiency standpoint with, you can't have a guy be out there for 3 minutes straight. It just wouldn't work.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting, because like, to know that there's that much shift, which I know there might be levels to it, right? But like the guys who have been in the game for forever, like Ovechkin and Gretzky, which obviously those are like the biggest names, right, historically, in terms of like goal scoring. Like if that was their type of in and out too, like it's just really impressive to know, like if that is what they were doing as well, how efficient they were when they were on the ice. Like that's crazy to know that that's what they were doing.
Right. Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier about when you were in college, and you got hurt, you had kind of some really good mentors in that time frame, right? In that time frame of your life or career. So who was that influential coach to you? Maybe one or two, right? Who was that person, and what did they teach you as a person or as just an athlete at the time?
Yeah, my high school coach, Jeremy Renola, was probably been my biggest influence. I wouldn't have got as far as I did playing wise without him, and I definitely would not have gotten as far coaching wise without him. So he basically, for both sides of my career, I guess would be my biggest influence. Still talk to him all the time. He really got the most out of me as a player. Really, when I played, instilled confidence in me. And that was something that I was, needed at the time. And, that really, like I said, I really thrived. I probably played my best hockey my last year of high school hockey, playing for him in pretty much every single metric.
Okay.
That then, springboarded me to go play junior hockey, which is something that is different in our sport compared to some other sports. Is that you want to play college hockey, you're going to have to play 2 to 3 years of junior hockey before you move on to college hockey.
Really?
Yeah. So I went and played 1 year of junior hockey after high school. So now you're playing against pretty much all your best players, your top tier from high school that have moved on, and some other levels that have moved on. So I needed confidence again, and I would call him, and he would always kind of talk to me through things and help me with that. He was the one that, started my recruiting process to the school that I ended up going to. He knew some people there, and again, then helped me get my college opportunity. And then when I got hurt, he was the one that suggested, why don't you try coaching? I always see that that'd be something that it would be in your future. So then got me my first coaching job, really.
Yeah.
So you look at all these different levels I've played at or done.
He's the common denominator.
He is the common denominator. And even, this year, we played at Notre Dame, which was a game that was broadcast, and, he watched it, sent me some photos.
Cool.
Of me on the bench, and let me know, hey, I'm still watching you, proud of everything you've done. Really cool to see. So he would be my biggest one, my biggest ally. And again, I can still remember just little things, and maybe it's why I'm a coach now, but I remember him, watching an NHL game, seeing a player do something, thinking, oh, that's really cool. We're going to practice that tomorrow. telling us about it, drawing up the drill on the board, us doing it. And I can remember 2 or 3 specific moments in high school of me trying something that he saw and what we practiced, and then it working in a game for me to score a goal. Like, that was pretty cool, as you kind of see that progression of coaching.
That is cool. Yeah, the fact that he was willing to. I mean, I don't know if you do. I'm sure you do, especially since you were literally a I wouldn't say guinea pig, but your coach did that. He saw something and tried to put it into perspective. You know, I feel like that's something that I try to get my athletes to watch too. I'm like, hey, go watch some high level wrestling, right? Because I coach women's wrestling at the JUCO level, at the 2-year space, and so like I try to say, hey, go watch what these Division I, go watch what these Olympic wrestlers are doing, and see what it's doing, right? And see what works for them, and just be a student of the game. And so it's really cool that your coach literally was a student of the game to then bring it down to even maybe simplifying it for high school, but maybe not, but still, you know, being willing to try and just put it out there, and obviously worked out for you. So yeah, shout out to that coach. He seems to have really cared a lot and still does, which I think we all need that. I have a coach that was just like that too. He still to this day, he'll reach out every once in a while, and you know, you can just tell. It's really cool when you have that relationship.
Yeah, still do. He doesn't coach anymore, but you know, still loves hockey and keeps in touch with me, and it is cool. I mean, and that, I think, the way that that he would interact with me, I take a lot of that now with how I interact with my players. Obviously, everything to me, relationships are huge and are my biggest things. So I like to build those with my players because I just know how important it was for me moving through my career.
For sure, yeah. So you mentioned in that conversation there that you said that that most kids, if not everybody, has to go play that junior hockey before they go play, right? So I guess why? Like, why is that such a why do people have to do that in order to get to that opportunity, essentially?
Yeah, well, yeah. I'll not many people from outside of the sport know, but my freshmen come in at 21 years old. So our game is older, bigger, stronger than a lot of other traditional sports. So I'm not getting an 18-year-old out of high school. I'm getting a 20 to 21-year-old man who's developed. And you look at it on the flip side with that. That means my seniors would be 24, 25 years old. And a 24, 25-year-old going up against an 18-year-old, there's a little bit of a discrepancy with how much they physically matured. So why wouldn't you get a player who's 2 to 3 more years developed when you can, right? Our sport allows us to do that. Basically, when I tell people about this, it's basically like, imagine you play your high school sport and then you post grad for 2 to 3 years after, but you're just focusing and training on your sport, and then you go in. Most of the time you have to move away from home. So for me, I had to move to Detroit, which was 4 hours away from home. So now you're living on your own. You're maturing too. You learn a lot of life lessons because of the way junior hockey is structured. You're playing like 60 to 70 games, which is way more than what you'd play at college, way more than what I played in high school. So you're learning a bunch of different skills before you go on to college. And then with that, now you're in school. If you look at men's ice hockey, has a very high graduation rate because guys are older. They want to get in, they want to get out within 4 years. A lot of guys have credits that they're already bringing in. But to answer your question, it is more just to, just make sure our athletes are more physically and more mature, ready to play our game. And a lot of our guys, they do it. They want to play pro hockey. It just gives them 4 years more of runway to develop, to go and play and sign and play pro hockey.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's just a way of getting that discrepancy down to where, they're prepared for it, of course. So whenever you are kind of in that space then, right, like you mentioned, you mature. So not only are you maturing in personal and that maturity on, just life, but it also, playing that many games, you probably learn how to take care of your body. You're forced to, otherwise you're going to break down, right? And you probably do naturally. It's going to happen, but you also learn how to take care of the important pieces of your life. I'm sure hockey's probably top to bottom. It's not anything, I was going to say lower body, upper body, but it's probably the full thing, obviously, with the physicality of it. So, yeah, learning how to do that piece of it is very important too, which I guess maybe a wild question. I've never asked this, but because you're mentioning that that's what y'all do, and that's how hockey works, like, I've never talked to anybody about this new 5-for-5 thing that NCAA produced, right? This new thing that it is. So I don't know if you've talked, I don't know if you know whatever yet, but is that going to affect you guys at the NCAA level hockey as well, knowing that's the new plan?
Yes, would affect us, would not help us.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think there's I don't think any school that in men's ice hockey is wanting that to happen. Just because of the way that our model is, what our model is worked at forever. It's worked. We've never had any issues. So it's gonna, again, yeah, hurt us a little bit. But if that's the cards that we're dealt, that's the cards we're dealt, and we'll have to adapt and survive. I think it eventually will even itself out. I think the first couple of years would be a little bit different because we have to bring in some younger kids than what we're used to.
But I still think that junior hockey is not necessarily out the window, per se, right? Like they could still go play for a year or two of that. I just think that it's probably going to be a little bit less of that time where they're there for the whole time. They might be there for 1 to 2 years instead of like 3 or 4, right? And then
or they just
they're
start
still younger, but yeah.
Or they just start earlier. Like you can leave. I didn't have to stay in high school. I could have left early and went and played juniors earlier.
Okay.
That's still an option. So kids might just start their playing junior earlier than what they have in years past. But
that's fair. That's cool. Okay. Yeah, you find a way. You find the way for sure. Okay. So as a hockey program, as a hockey coach, right, or just maybe in general, you as a coach, you spent time not only here at Robert Morris, but you spent time at some other places before you got to here, right? This last year, I believe, was your first year at Robert Morris. You're heading into your second year, but you spent some years prior to this. So as a whole, what are some challenges that you have faced as a coach from kind of where you started to where you are now? Not necessarily on the recruiting space, because we'll talk a little bit about that here in a little bit, but more just general coaching. What has been some challenges you've had to overcome from when you first got into coaching to now that now you can feel a little bit more comfortable in, or maybe you know how to attack now that you've overcame them before?
Sure. Yeah. I have worked at a lot of different places, which has been very beneficial for me. I've worked in 7 schools, I believe, between Division 3 and Division 1. So I have had the benefit of learning from a lot of really good people, which has helped. I'd say the biggest thing is like public speaking.
Sure.
Been the biggest thing, especially when you're young and like you first get into coaching and you're like the same age as some of the same ages, like your seniors, and you've got to teach them, and you've known some of them for a large part of your life and everything. I guess that was kind of tough, but helpful at the same time. I mean, everybody wants to move on and play at the highest level, so it doesn't matter who you are. If you're going to provide some knowledge to them and help them achieve their goals, they're going to listen. So that was like my biggest lesson early. Like one of my first years of coaching, I literally grew up with a player, played with him, played against him. Now I'm coaching him, and I didn't know how that was going to go, and I remember speaking to him, and, he said, Vin, I want to play pro hockey. I want to get paid to play pro hockey. If you have knowledge that's going to help me get there, I will 100% listen to you. And that once that conversation was had, it was it's like like a weight lifted off my shoulders, and was really beneficial for me pretty early. I guess some of the places I've lived in have been pretty remote. So I guess something non-coaching related would be just more like learning to live in different areas, and like just the lifestyle was pretty cool experiences for me. But
I'm sure
Um,
that's not. I'm sure that. Uh, you have to learn how to adapt. I'm sure that can be hard sometimes.
I built my own program from scratch at the Division III level. So from the
Okay.
ground up, and as a head coach, and it was my first time ever as a head coach. And I learned that making the decisions as the head coach are a lot different than making the decisions as an assistant coach. When you're an assistant
Sure.
coach, everything is black and white. Just do this. When you're a head coach, you're thinking about a million different things. And I did it at a pretty young age. So I got a lot of valuable knowledge and learned a ton. And you look back at it, and maybe I would have done things differently here or there, but I learned it and I can benefit from it now where I'm at now.
Yeah, for sure. So you've been a head coach before. So normally I don't always ask this question. I didn't know you were a head coach. Maybe I missed that, but that's cool. So do you think that head coaching is something that you eventually you're going to try to get back into? I mean, not to take anything away from right now. I know as a assistant, you're probably happy where you are, of course. So it's not to say like you're ready to leave, of course. That's not what I'm meaning. But like, do you enjoy the idea of maybe when the right opportunity comes, when time's right, things of that nature? Maybe there's whatever the case is. Do you think that that's something that you might venture back into? Especially now that you've got different experiences from different people, right? Maybe now like you said, when were the head coach the first time, you're a little young. Now you spent time as an assistant. You've had coaches. You've been around coaches, right? So maybe the next time you have that chance, you'll be a different mindset, just different space in life this time.
Yeah. Maybe eventually, not right
Sure.
now.
Yeah.
I know my personality and what I'm good at, what my strengths are. And I think being a Division I assistant is what I'm suited for, and
Sure.
what I enjoy being. That might change though. My goals have always changed throughout my entire coaching career. My
Sure.
first goal was I wanted to build my own program from scratch, and I gave myself a time frame to do it, and I was able to do it in a smaller time frame than what I thought. I got that job at 28. So now I did it,
Yeah.
and I was like, what do I want to do next? What's my next goal? So my goals are always
Evolving. Yeah.
evolving.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I really enjoy, like I said, being an assistant, and building those relationships. And um, sometimes as the
Time's
head
right. Yeah.
coach, you got to lay down the hammer, and it's
Yeah.
leadership is sometimes lonely. And um, like I said, I think with some more experience, I would be ready for that. But in the meantime, I really enjoy what I'm doing now.
Sure. Yeah. No, like you said, I mean, you know what's right for you at the time, and when that time comes, maybe. But hey, you know what though? You got to experience certain things, and now you're happy where you are. So that's obviously the biggest thing at the end of the day is what makes you enjoy what you do. Sometimes that's head coach, sometimes it's assistant, but at the end of the day, you're around the game that you love. So I respect that. Now, as you've evolved over time, not only as a coach, head coach, assistant coach, but also as an athlete, right? You've been around the game for a little while in terms of things that you have going on, things that the game has come to, things of that nature. And I think it's really cool that you've probably seen the game evolve. And I don't know, maybe the game's kind of the same, but I'm sure it's evolved in its own rights. So, what's an overrated and underrated drill / technique that hockey does nowadays? Like in terms of, it could be a drill, it could be a stat line that people like focus on, right? Whatever the case is. But what's overrated and underrated when it comes to the game of hockey?
Sure. Um, I would say, huh, I mean, what we work on still at this level every day that I think is underlooked is passing
Okay.
drills, passing from A to B. Like, I could be the best coach in the world, but if I
Sure.
can draw up this great play that's going to score every time, but if my player can't move the puck from A to B or B to C, then it won't work.
Yeah.
And it's something very basic you learn very early on in your career, but you forget about it because it's so second nature now. So we work on it every day, passing. I think it's very, like I said, I think people don't value it as much anymore, but it's just so important to take care of the puck, and
Sure.
just constantly be doing it. And, you know, my college coach always used to say there's never a bad pass to a good player. All the passes aren't going to be flat. They're going to be bouncing. They're going to be in your feet. It might be a little bit ahead of you. It might be a little bit behind you. So you got to learn to kind of just corral everything and catch everything. So I think that's very underlooked. Overrated. Oh boy, let's see.
Or overlooked. I mean, that's a good one too. You could do overlooked or overrated too, whichever one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of people, we get a lot of analytical things, a lot of different data after every game, right? After every game, there's a lot of different metrics you can use. I don't know if they tell the whole story though. For me, the way that I look at it, I could watch the game on video and think that player A had a really good game, but then I'd get his like analytical report back and it would say didn't. So I don't base all of my judgment basically on some of the analytical reports that we get after the numbers. I don't think they tell the whole story.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes that's just how it works, right? Like sometimes on paper, it's not as good as what you see, and I think every sport has that, football or basketball, whatever the case. Like they don't like basketball in particular. Like I don't really watch a whole lot of basketball per se, but like I've heard people say like that's not going to show up on a stat line. Like that's not going to show how effective this person was by just help defense or, screens, or if it's football, whatever the case is. Every sport has its little thing. So I think that's a very good point, is the stat sheets don't always show how good this person actually was today, right? And sometimes I'm sure contrary, the stat line might show somebody better than they actually were as well. Like I'm sure it works both ways.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's why in my opinion, you can never base, we play series every week. So we would play Friday and we play Saturday against the same opponent. I think it's very good to make sure as a coach you watch the whole game back and then look at your analytical report to make your decision on who is playing the next game.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a big piece on how you create or help with your starting lineup and you evolve your roster over the season, basically.
Yep.
Okay, I like it. Okay. So with that being said, kind of on that same train, I guess, development, right? You have a lot of athletes who want to be, and like I said earlier, I don't know how many people are on your starting lineup, so I can't ever I don't want to speak for that, or not starting lineup, but like your travel roster, whatever. But like in the development speak, right? You said you've had guys who want to go play in the NHL. They want to play pro hockey. You have guys who probably just want to be a starter for you, right? So like in the development part of this conversation, where do you start with development, and then how do you get an athlete to go from in high school terms, right, JV to varsity, but in varsity collegiate sports, it's more of how do you get a kid to go from I'm seeing 20 seconds a game or I'm not seeing any game time at all to now I'm getting my foot in the door. Now I'm actually getting some PT. Now I'm actually going to set foot on the ice. So I know there's variables to that, of course, too, like their buy-in, how much effort they put in, things of that nature. But as a coach, where is some starting points for you and maybe for your staff in terms of development, like how you're getting kids to go from that bench player to actually seeing the ice?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we work with our guys on individual skill every week.
Okay.
We have 3 dedicated times throughout the week to help upgrade our guys' skills. That's what I look at it. I look at like, hey, I'm here to increase the amount of tools in your tool bag, right? And a lot of players have different ones already, and some don't. I'd say to play at this level, you got to be able to skate and keep up. So that's at the bare minimum. So everybody here can do that. They can skate, they can keep up. If they can't, I can't put them on the ice, right? So from there, it's then building everything else around them. There's a huge emphasis in getting bigger and stronger so they can play at the pro level. Majority of that is done in the off season where guys are going to be in the weight room 4 times a week and they're just trying to put on as much muscle and gain as much strength as possible. But from there, yeah, it's just every guy can work on some different things. But when we try to identify what those skills are and help them with them and get better at it. I work with our forwards here at Robert Morris, so we have a big emphasis on two of the biggest skills that we work on is retrieving pucks off the wall, because it's a skill that's really hard for a lot of players to master, especially when they have pressure on them, someone coming down the wall, someone right on them. How effectively are they going to get that puck off the wall? And then the other two is just is scoring. Scoring is a skill, getting pucks off in tight areas, disguising your shot, learning to get open ice. There's a lot of different things you can do to help them with it. And then build their confidence up too is huge too. Like I feel like that's something that I'm constantly trying to do with all the players, just to get them to see what their maximum potential is. And it starts with a lot of that skill and development of just, hey, this is what the skill we're going to do today. Let's do it slow. They do it slow, then they get better at it, they get better. Then we're doing it at full speed. Now they're implementing the game. They see it work. They build that confidence. They go from there to try and help them get to that next level.
That confidence, man, that's something that I think is another one of those things where you have to really build that confidence up. Or obviously you're building the confidence up, but maybe not an overrated or underrated piece of it. But I feel like it's something that may be sometimes hard for some people because every athlete's different, and every athlete takes feedback differently. Like some athletes may be more used to a coach yelling at them, right? And like a question for me, right, which I'm gonna. It's kind of a two. I'll ask this in a minute, but it's always like, is hockey practice really hard? Because I feel like you see, like I watch these movies, right? Like, because I've never watched a hockey practice. There's never been a hockey team around me. To like, I've never seen it. Like my state doesn't even have hockey at the high school level, right? So I've never seen a hockey practice, but you see movies, which are probably super glorified, of course. But I feel like hockey is a very, very tough practice space, right? I mean, I think wrestling's hard. That's what I coach. It's always hard, but hockey's hard in its own right, or its own regard as well. So that confidence, I'm sure, is not necessary, and everybody takes things differently, I'm sure. So, which I'll ask that question. You can answer it after this piece, but like I was gonna say, those athletes who, when it comes to building that confidence, right? Like every athlete takes feedback differently. So, as a coach, for you, especially in the world of hockey, where it's very mentally and physically a hard sport, how do you coach a team or even an athlete through, either a tough loss or maybe a tough stretch in their career? Maybe they're not developing the way that they are hoping for. How are you coaching, and how are you teaching that feedback or helping them through that time frame, right? If that question makes sense, through, you shouldn't have lost the series or tough end to the year, you might lost in the conference tournament, whatever the case is, right? Like there's multiple variations of what's hard in a year, but how are you coaching that kid or team through that time frame?
Yeah, it's just always like I like to say I'm always positive through everything.
Sure.
Always tell them to continue to keep working forward and through it. I know that sounds cliche, but that's just kind of how I've always been. We had a very tough start to this season where we only won 4 games first half. And it would be pretty easy for everyone, including myself, just to mail it in and say whatever. And just getting through, pushing through, really it only takes one good play, one good thing to happen to completely re-energize yourself and kind of shape the whole season. And for us, that was just one win that we needed to get. And from there, we went on in a very large run the second half to end up finishing 3rd in our conference. So, I look at that and it's just like, trying to continue to work through things, be positive through it. I try to be myself through both the wins and the losses, and don't try to treat anyone any differently through it. Just, hey, let's just keep going to work. This will work. It'll pay off. We got to keep doing it. And it seemed to have worked this year, through that. And it doesn't matter. You're always going to have tough times no matter what you do in life, whether it's sports, whether it's a job, whether it's your personal life. There's really only one way to go through it, and that's up. Can't go backward. You're moving forward. Yeah. So
you're always going up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, just so you know, just because I know you said like public speaking, right? I don't know how you feel about podcasts and stuff, right? Like we didn't really talk about it, but I will say even though you're not a big public speaker, there's some gems you're throwing out here for sure. So it sounds like you've been in this situation before, but yeah, absolutely. Only way to do is to go up. So, but is hockey practices hard? I assume you see these like suicides, just like in basketball, or whatever, right? You see that in hockey. You see, I'm sure there's some physical training where you guys let them eat a little bit on the ice so they can hit each other, right? Maybe not crazy, but I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong. But like, explain a hockey practice. I know it's variational. Every coach is different, and you don't have to go like in depth on like how your practices are necessarily. But are hockey practices traditionally a pretty hard place for people?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say my best way to describe it, like when I was coaching Division III and I was a head coach, we had our baseball coach come to one of our practices. He wanted to see what it was like, outside perspective, never been there before. He was amazed with how much the guys are moving and how quickly they are and at what pace they are. So we like you said, we like to get as many guys moving as we possibly can. We like to get our work done because our season, in a lot of those different scenarios, like I've talked about, there's a lot of different, it's long, a lot of games. We don't like to beat our guys up too much in terms of like length of practice. So like here, we'll only go hour 10 minutes. Some places I've been, it's been less than that for a practice, but the pace, you're constantly moving. You're constantly getting work done. You like to be efficient, not a lot of downtime. You see like you talked about the miracle, the sprints up and down the ice, you don't really see that a whole lot anymore. You try to get that kind of work done in with whatever drill you're doing. You're getting your conditioning in with the pace of what your practice is with the drills that you're doing. But yeah, you want to be very efficient with your time, really authentic with your time. Like I said, everything's pretty planned out. We're pretty routine too. So, Monday through Thursday, I would say as a player, you can come in here on Monday and know what types of drills we're going to do. You might not know the exact name of them or what, but like, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this kind of drill, this kind of drill. Your more harder or physical practices are going to be earlier in the week, usually like a Monday or Tuesday, just so that it gives you a little more ample time to rest for your games on Friday and Saturday. But you always want to be working on that skill, working on that skill. Guys love games. Guys love competing and love like playing each other. So like every practice is going to be some sort of competitive small area game that we kind of have a whole list of different ones that we can do. That's cool. A lot of times we'll put different parameters on them, or there's different concepts that we're trying to hit. But those are what guys love. They love competing and love doing those. So.
That's cool. Yeah, creating that competitive environment, I think, helps a lot in practice, of course, in all aspects. So I like that. Okay, so it is a pretty intense practice, but it's not what you see on the movies so much per se anymore. It's just you have a method to your madness. You're in and out with consistent work. So okay, I like it. All right. So my final quick little piece here before we talk, kind of have like three philosophy at the end that are pretty straightforward, which if you've watched it, we have like three end of the show philosophy questions, and then we have I have some fun questions at the very end that I like to ask. But really the last little piece is, I said earlier we talk a little bit about recruiting, so we're not going to talk like transfer portal, none of that stuff, but I am curious to know, because it's such a competitive area in terms of hockey, like you said, there's 63 teams in the NCAA. So when it comes to your recruiting space, especially as an assistant, like how much role do you play in the recruiting? Whether you're the main guy or you're just kind of in there for conversations, right? You might be helping out with visits, whatever the case is. What's your place for the recruiting space? And then secondly, where are you even finding athletes, and how are you finding them, right? And when are you trying to pay attention to them in their time frame? I know you've talked about, are you looking at them in high school? Are you not really looking for high school kids? You're more looking at that junior space, like that junior hockey space. Like, I guess if that makes sense, where are you at in the recruiting game as an assistant here, and then when are you looking for these athletes and where?
Sure. Well, here, all the coaches recruit. So we have 3 coaches: our head coach, myself, and our other assistant coach, Marco. All 3 of us will go on the road and watch players live.
Sure.
I'd say I probably do it a little bit more, being the youngest guy on staff, which I like. I like to travel. I like going and seeing the world, seeing different places. But we will all go. We kind of already know the pool of players coming up just because of all these camps and stuff that we do throughout the summer. So we do have some targets that we are already going after when the year starts, but it's always good to see everybody live. Where do we go? We go everywhere.
Sure.
Our roster right now has primarily Canadian, probably 60-40. Then we have some European. The game has shifted in the past couple years with leagues that we can recruit from. Before we couldn't recruit major junior out of Canada, which is basically your fast track to play pro hockey. You just bypass college, you go right from junior to pro. We can recruit out of that league now. 4 out of our 5 incoming freshmen are from major junior. So now I'm going to some different markets in Canada that I've never been to.
That's
British
cool.
Columbia. I went out there 2 different times to watch the WHL, the OHL, basically in Ontario, which 4 of our guys are coming from, and then the QMJHL up in Quebec. Those are kind of our primary focus. Still watch in the United States, still watch the USHL and the North American League. Very good players coming out of that. It's just these leagues are new. It's a new shiny toy, so we look everywhere for players.
Sure.
That process starts now at all these camps that we're going to. I go to these camps again, watching a lot of specific birth years. Obviously, I don't recruit them until they're 20. We get them old, but I'll make a list. Hey, I liked this kid, and I'll just keep tracking them. Hopefully they remember me from the camp that they're at. Oh, hey coach, hey coach, I remember you from this camp. Now I kind of have a leg up because they already remember me. And I built that relationship already with them. So that's kind of, cool. I guess our piece, but you never know, what could happen. We don't want to talk transfer portal, but you could lose some guys and then need some guys late. So then you got to kind of always constantly talking with players and tracking players and
just staying on top of it
24/7.
Yeah, absolutely. Always is. That's cool. I think the 4-year space is a little bit different than 2-year space, which obviously it is, right? Like you guys might be recruiting 3 to 6 people a year, maybe a little bit more depending on, like you said, in and out, right? I think the 2-year we're obviously recruiting a little bit heavier than that for that number, but I think it's cool though because you guys have like the resources you guys have, and this isn't to say anything negative, but I think it's really cool that you guys, the way that you guys are traveling, where you guys are seeing these athletes and how you're keeping on track, keeping on top of them, which is a little bit not necessarily a bad thing. But like if you might have seen that kid at 16 or 17, right? So instead of you seeing them and trying to go after them a year later, you're trying to watch them for 3-4 years possibly, right? And so like that's viewership is great because you've seen their growth, but you have to really it's I wouldn't say more tedious, but that timeline you just have to be. How do you even put it without sounding bad or without sounding negative? You're just watching them for a long time, right? So like it's a lot of keep up or a lot of up work essentially. Instead of being a 1 or 2 year thing, you're looking at 4 or 5 years. So your patience has to be top tier as a coach. So well, the final few questions I have for you, man, is kind of my favorite to end with because I think especially since you spent time both as a head coach, but now as an assistant at different levels. You've probably been a part of some really good things in this regard, and you'll know what I mean whenever I ask these questions. But I think it's pretty interesting that from your perspective, right, just in the game of hockey. So How do you build a successful culture on the level of buy-in and mindset?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm very big on player-led culture.
Sure. Okay.
We kind of um, player-led culture. I always think is the best. We kind of meet with our leadership group, always kind of set what our standard is. They come together as players and kind of create what our standards is, create what our culture is, and we just kind of hold them accountable to it. And then what really is awesome is when they start holding the rest of the group accountable for the standards that they set, and you can kind of, as a coach, sit back and watch what you've created and watch it take off. And I thought here we did a really good job with that and had that, as you can see with our second half run that we had. The buy-in from everybody was there, but yeah, it's just really creating that standard, setting that standard, holding everybody to it. Sometimes it's hard, but then everyone is learning to pull the same rope, and everyone's in the same direction and buy in. And the ones that fight and that aren't find themselves on the outside looking in.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a fair point. I think it's interesting. It's kind of cool. Like I hear people that will talk like, oh, well, this is a clique. It's like, no, it's like 90% of this team bought in and worked really, really hard. You 3 to 5% didn't. So of course it feels like you're on the outside looking in, but it's not. It's just, these guys actually worked hard. So fair point. I like it. So kind of the same question, but different in its own regard. So how do you build a successful program on the level of wins, and how do you sustain that year in, year out?
Oh, yeah. A lot tougher these days.
Sure.
A lot tougher these days because you want to maintain your roster from year to year. Obviously, traditionally, the older you are, the better your team does, because you've got guys that have gone through everything year after year and have learned from their mistakes and have been in some of those situations before. So I guess that would be my biggest thing with maintaining those wins and losses every year. Yeah. But obviously, like I said, a little bit harder. You always set the goal at the end of the year, whatever your win total was from the previous year, you want to try and succeed that.
Sure. Yeah.
That next year. Obviously, the more you win, the better recruits you can bring in as well. So it's kind of a feeding. It feeds itself. Making sure that culture you've maintained through the year continues through that next year really helps as well. But my biggest thing is if you can, the more players you can retain from year to year really helps.
For sure, yeah. That buy-in's already established. Absolutely. I like it. So my favorite question of it all is the name of the show. It's what's your why? Why do you do this? What's your coach's why?
My coach's why is to, help players get to where they want to go at their next step. And I do it because I had really good mentors in my life that we had talked about that helped me get there, how important it was for me, how important hockey's been for me. And I want to give that back to the players that I coach, moving forward. And I truly enjoy it. I don't feel like, I work. I come in, I enjoy what I do every day. The long hours at the rink, traveling, going from city to city, it's fun. It's and one of the biggest rewarding part of it is then when you see, I guess, a player move on with his life, with whatever he's doing, and then they text you and let you know how important you were to their life. That's why I do it.
Yeah, it brings it all together. Absolutely. I like it. Yeah. So you want to give back, be the person for them as that coach was for you. So I like it. Hell yeah. Well, I have a few more fun. I have like 2 or 3 fun questions at the end. So they're going to be to end the show, as I like to do. If you guys are still watching the show, make sure you guys hit that bell, like, subscribe, all the 9 yards if you're on YouTube. If you guys are an audio listener, make sure you guys leave a review, hit those comments, say what you got to say, but say it with your chest, because Coach and I want to hear it. Final few questions for you is, who's the GOAT in the game of hockey?
Right now or all time?
All time.
No, Wayne Gretzky.
Wayne Gretzky. All right. I like it. Who's your favorite player of all time, though? He might be the GOAT, but who's your favorite player?
Oh boy, I'll go Mike York.
Mike York.
Mike York, under the radar name, but really, really dominant college hockey player. Played at Michigan State. Played 10 years in the NHL. Was a U.S. Olympian. Really good playmaker. And I'll just say that because I got to coach with him.
Sure. Okay.
So for a year, I really loved him when he was playing, and then you get to coach with him too, and he just, then it becomes, just another added level. So
for sure.
Yeah. Shout out to York. I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Final question for you. Favorite, and it might be a little bit different because it's kind of a two-parter. So I don't know if I want to ask it. I mean, I know what you're going to say. The question is what normally it's what state produces the best high school hockey?
Okay.
I wanted to say American or which country produces the best hockey players, America or Canada. So I'm going to let you, but I feel like I don't want any emails coming to you because you said Canada. So we'll stay in the States and we'll say what state produces the best high school hockey?
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Okay.
But I am biased to Michigan. That's where I'm from.
Sure.
So
yeah,
Minnesota, then Michigan. But Minnesota's just got a little bit different of a development model than a lot of other states, and they do it really well, and they move a lot of their high school hockey players on to the next level.
Absolutely. All right. So Minnesota's the route. Okay. I like it. All right. Shout out to Gretzky, shout out to York, and shout out to Minnesota. I like it. All right. Well, Coach, I appreciate you talking about your favorites and your GOATs and those states produce the best, obviously, the whole time and your time for talking today. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk today to me and to us. So thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciated our talk.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And obviously wish you the best this coming year. And you got a fan now from Oklahoma. I'm not really, I guess New Mexico is OG where I'm from, but I live here now. But I haven't really watched a whole lot of hockey, but everybody's been trying to get me in. But now that I've talked to you, maybe I'll take the leap and start watching a little bit more hockey and get to know it by watching some intensity that you're speaking on. So, but again, thanks again for taking the time to talk, and thank you guys for watching wherever you may be watching or listening from. And with that being said, we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.